So it essentially means that the two shoes are exactly as efficient one as the other. Hey everyone, and welcome back on the channel. My name is Alex, and today we are hosting a very interesting battle on the channel. It's the battle between the two speeds, the Endorphin Speed from Saucony and the ASICS MAGIC SPEED. This is a 2020 release, a very popular shoe. I will not describe it, you know it, and it's really a popular choice. And a brand new release, released end of March from ASICS. Quite interesting. You can go check my first impression review for this shoe here, upper right hand corner. And two very different shoes, but that are presented as working quite well for tempo paces, tempo workouts. First of all, let's look at the data, then we'll look at the points. We'll go through all the specs, of the shoes, and I'll attribute points, and we'll see which shoe wins in the point battle, which shoe I prefer. And at the end, I will give you my recommendations in terms of which shoe is best for you, depending on the type of runner that you are and depending on the gap that you're trying to fill in your shoe rotations. So stick with me until the end for that. And without no further ado, let's dive into the data for this shoe battle. So first of all, the pace at which I tested the two shoes. I tested the two shoes at 5 minutes per kilometer. That's around 8 minutes per mile. That's rather slow. I think those shoes are working maybe better, or the sweet spot for these shoes is around that tempo pace, which is quite faster for me. But I also thought that these are two very popular picks, and maybe testing at an average pace for all runners could be more relevant for you. So let's try this version of the pace I'm testing the shoes at. The 5 minutes per kilometer, that's the pace I tested the shoes at. That's 8 minutes per mile. In terms of cadence and stride, pretty similar, no big difference. I was expecting that we would see the Endorphin Speed with a lower cadence, simply because it's a bit more cushioned, and very often more cushioned shoes are having lower cadences, simply because I am taking more advantage of the cushion. So I'm reducing the number of steps and making each step a bit harder, simply to sink in more in the shoe and make more advantage out of the cushion. It's not the case, so very similar type of cadences and strides. You are having the data on your screen at the same time. In terms of efficiency, and that's the first very interesting metric here in the comparison, we have the exact same power number for the two shoes, which is quite surprising, I must say. First of all, because it's quite rare in terms of coincidence to have the exact same number for the exact same pace. So it essentially means that the two shoes are exactly as efficient one as the other. So quite interesting. Now in terms of midsole and ride, we will look at different metrics. First of all, the stack and the drop. So the Magic Speed comes at 29 millimeters in the heel, 24 in the forefoot, so that's a 5 millimeters drop. And the Endorphin Speed comes at 37.5 in the heel, 27.5 in the forefoot, so that's 8 millimeters drop. So we have more drop on the Speed, 3 extra millimeters compared to the Magic Speed, and overall the stacks values are higher on the Endorphin Speed. Now the first groundbreaking metric for this comparison is the durometer score, and fasten your seatbelts because you may not believe what's coming at you right now. The metrics from the durometer tests are lower for the midsole, so the Flight Foam Blast, and the outsole of the Magic Speed, compared to the Power Run PB midsole and the outsole of the Endorphin Speed, which is completely unbelievable because subjectively the Endorphin Speed feels way softer, way more cushioned, way more comfortable in terms of how the ride feels and how the ride experience is. This is much firmer, much stiffer, much harder, and I would have expected to have way higher values for the durometer score on the Magic Speed from ASICS. It's not the case, so this really shows how interesting it is to put into perspective the subjective feelings and the objective values of the durometer test. Because here, you know, based on the durometer, people preferring firmer rides would have picked the Endorphin Speed, and it's not firmer at all. So quite interesting here. Now, in terms of dimensions of the platforms, the two shoes are pretty similar, no big differences. The Endorphin Speed feels like a very narrow shoe, and that's not only the platform, that's also the upper, but we'll come back to that. The upper is maybe rubbing a bit against your feet for people having wider feet. But even for myself, I have a regular type of foot width, and I have some rubbing depending on the socks I'm wearing, for instance on the pinky. So that's quite a narrow shoe, and it's reflected in the values of the platform width. The Endorphin Speed is a bit narrower here in the midfoot, but overall quite similar. That also comes down to the upper, and the Magic Speed has a bit more of a stretchy, roomier type of upper, a bit too much actually, but that, you know, the differences are also here. But in terms of purely data, numbers, and so on, the width is pretty similar. Again, the Endorphin Speed has a bit of a more narrow here platform in the midfoot. Now, in terms of responsiveness, we are obviously looking at ground contact time as a proxy metric, and no surprise, the Magic Speed is more responsive, 242 milliseconds against 256 milliseconds. So lower values for the Magic Speed, more responsive shoe, but makes sense. Firmer, more you know, peppy ride, and it's reflected in the responsiveness metrics. Makes total sense. Now, bounciness is quite interesting. The two values are in the same ballpark, but the difference is sufficient enough for it to be mentioned, and the Magic Speed is supposedly more bouncy, which is surprising because subjectively I would have said that the Endorphin Speed is more bouncy, but the metrics show that the Magic Speed is more bouncy. You know, to be taken with a grain of salt, but that's quite interesting. Next, we are looking at all the data that indicates how pounding a ride is for the legs. So again, this may seem a bit odd, but in fact it's very relevant and pretty much always spot on. We're looking at shock metrics, impact metrics, and braking metrics. So subjectively, in terms of pounding on the legs, I would assume that the Endorphin Speed is less pounding, so more cushioned, more friendly for the distance, and it's a shoe that actually takes quite well care of the legs. At least that's from my experience running with it, and I think that's also why it's a winner for many people, for many runners, simply because the pounding from this shoe is quite minimal. And compared to the Magic Speed, the ride is so firm on the Magic Speed that I would assume here again subjectively that the pounding on the legs is higher, and I would expect these to be these feelings to be seen in the metrics. So looking at the metrics in terms of shock, indeed the Endorphin Speed has lower shock values for each footstep compared to the Magic Speed. So essentially it means that each footstep provokes less shock impact on the foot, and that also, you know, translate to the muscles, the joints here in the ankle, the heel area, the lower limbs, and all the posterior chains in fact are impacted by that. So lower shock metrics for the Endorphin Speed, a bit higher for the Magic Speed. Makes total sense. Firmer ride, more of that ground feel, more of that pounding on the legs on the Magic Speed. It's also visible on the braking values. They're lower with the Endorphin Speed, so that essentially indicates how taxing is the braking, so the deceleration when you hit the ground on your legs, and it's less taxing with the Endorphin Speed. it's much more taxing with the Magic Speed. So in terms of leg pounding, the winner is definitely the Endorphin Speed. No doubt whatsoever. Now the next set of metrics we're looking at are motion metrics. So we're looking at foot strike type, pronation velocity, and interestingly, the foot strike is very similar for both shoes. You could think that the lower drop shoe, the Magic Speed, would have had a foot strike more to the forefoot. It's not the case, so that's quite interesting. I assume that it doesn't have more of a forefoot striking pattern on the Magic Speed simply because it has that very pronounced rocker shape inspired from the guide sole technology from ASICS. And to take advantage of that rocker, I think that I'm striking more backwards towards the midfoot, and therefore there's no big difference in terms of foot strike type in the metrics. Without the rocker on the Magic Speed, but obviously it has it, so it's just like, you know, it's not a real counterfactual, but without the rocker, I think with the lower drop, the impact and the foot strike type would have been more towards the forefoot on the Magic Speed. But so similar, and you can see right now on your screen the shoe prints, which will show you how I'm striking with the two shoes. They're very similar, which makes sense. In terms of pronation, the difference is quite significant, and that's really interesting. I'm looking at the data right now. The pronation, so essentially the angle between the horizontal neutral position and the maximal pronation that you have in your foot strike. So that number, the pronation, is lower on the Endorphin Speed, a bit higher, 3 extra degrees, 19.5 degrees and 22.5 degrees of pronation on the Magic Speed. That's very interesting because remember, pronation isn't bad at all. It's a very good protection mechanism that is developed by your legs and by your, simply naturally in your gait cycle. It protects you essentially because pronation allows to reduce the impact and tension on the muscles, on the tendons. Now, a higher pronation doesn't necessarily mean a higher injury risk, but that can be correlated. So I think that's quite interesting to see that the Endorphin Speed is very user-friendly, lower leg pounding as we saw in that set of metrics, lower pronation. And I think that's also the reason why it's a winner for many runners, because unconsciously you are protecting yourselves quite well wearing this shoe. Now the pronation velocity here, remember again, it's the speed, the angular speed at which you are pronating. So a very fast angular speed, lower angular speed. So lower pronation velocity metrics can be correlated to a certain extent with lower injury risk. That's also to be taken with a grain of salt. Some people have very high pronation velocities and are never injured. Other people are having lower and very low values in absolute terms for the pronation velocity and are very injury prone. So that's only an indication, but research tends to show that higher pronation velocities are correlated with higher injury risks. And here again, the Endorphin Speed is more gentle because it has a lower pronation velocity, 528 degrees, against 630 degrees per second or minutes for the Magic Speed. So that was for the metrics. I hope you enjoyed this part. And if you're enjoying this video, please consider subscribing, joining the community here on the channel. We are growing at a very fast pace, and I must thank you all for giving me a chance and subscribing. If you're not subscribed yet, please consider subscribing and leaving a comment, liking the video. That's a great help for the channel and a big boost of motivation for myself. Now on to the second section of this video, so it's the one-word section. I'm giving just one word at a time to describe this shoe and this shoe. Let's start with the Magic Speed. So how would I describe the Magic Speed? It's firm. I said it already a few times. It's firm, but it's homogeneous. So it's, the firmness is very well spread across the shoe and the right experience. So firm, homogeneous, and peppy. Yeah, I think that's the 3 words for the Magic Speed. For the Endorphin Speed, I would say comfort, smooth, and maybe gentle. Does it make sense? It's not gentle like it's slow or inefficient, it's not, but it's gentle because everything it does it with that gentle feeling, if it makes sense. That's the reason I would go with gentle. There you go. I don't know if it's helpful for you to have these words, but I like to put just one word and, you know, not too many sentences, but just like one word or one word at a time, 3 words in total for each shoe. Let me know, do you enjoy this section of the video? I'm curious to hear. Okay, then let's go for the points. So we'll go through the different specs and I will give points for each shoe. Let's begin with the upper. No question here, it's for the Endorphin Speed. The upper of the Magic Speed is not wrapping around my feet nicely enough. I will try to remember and put the video here, the footage of how the upper is falling in the middle of the, like exactly here actually. I don't know if you can see, but I will try to put the footage on the screen right now. The upper, the point for the upper goes for the Endorphin Speed, no doubt. The midsole, same here, no doubt the Power Run PB associated with that plate is doing magic. Well, magic it would do on the Magic Speed, but it's working really well on the Endorphin Speed. So midsole, it's for the Endorphin Speed. The outsole, I would go with the Magic Speed. I read somewhere on the internet, I don't know who mentioned it, was it in the comments, in the review of the Magic Speed or in another review, which could be the case, that the outsole lacks grip on in wet conditions. I haven't run in the shoe with wet conditions, so I cannot relate if that's true or not, but I would say that the outsole is more grippy on the Magic Speed, and I tend to think the durability will be better on this shoe, so the point goes for the Magic Speed here. The ride, no doubt for me, it's for the Endorphin Speed. It's not my favorite ride on the market, but definitely it's a way better ride than on the Magic Speed. So here, ride for the Endorphin Speed. Laces, it's almost a draw, but I would tend to go for the Endorphin Speed, and that's not because of the laces color, not at all. That's simply because they're a bit thicker and I get a better lacing experience with the Endorphin Speed. The fit, that's a difficult one because the fit isn't good by any means on the Magic Speed. But so it's better on the Endorphin Speed, but I think I'm not gonna give any point for the fit in this battle simply because my pinky toe is rubbing at times in this shoe, and yeah, so no points for the fits. Price, that's a difficult one as well because price-wise in the EU that would be for the Magic Speed, but in the US they're priced at the same price tag. Or is it 150, 160, or both at 160? In any event, it's a draw because, you know, $10 difference isn't that of a big difference. And for that difference, if it's $10, I think I would still go for the Endorphin Speed. So the final pick, which one do I prefer between the two shoes? I think it makes total sense based on the metrics, based on the points, to go with the Endorphin Speed. I am very curious to know how the second iteration that is supposed to release somewhere in June will work. I don't think, based on the pictures that leaked, that the differences will be that major. I may be wrong, but in any event, you will have the V1 discounted in many places starting this summer, and I would definitely try to get another pair of the Endorphin Speed myself, should it be the V1 or the V2. We'll see, and I will keep you posted, of course. Last part of the video, which shoe is best for each type of runner. Instead of going by categories of runners, I will just pick, you know, the Magic Speed. I think it's better for people with lower cadences, simply because the plate is more rigid, and people with lower cadences will tend to make a better use of that rocker and that propulsion here in the forefoot with the very firm plates. They have likely more, you know, more power in the legs, and I think they will make a better use of this shoe. It's with the caveat of the data not showing it for myself, but I'm not sure if I'm, you know, more a cadence runner or stride runner. But lower cadence runners, I think that they may be better off with the Magic Speed. Same for people with wider fits. I would recommend the Magic Speed. Although the fit isn't spectacular by any means on the Magic Speed, I think it may accommodate better wider fits than the Endorphins. Now for all the other categories, that is heel strikers, midfoot strikers, forefoot strikers, heavy runners, lighter runners, and whatever else I'm forgetting. Even stability runners, although no, stability runners I would go with the Magic Speed, but for all the other categories I would recommend the Endorphin Speeds. It's just a better shoe. I mean, you know, I don't want to be too harsh on ASICS with the Magic Speed, because it can work for some runners better than the Endorphin Speed, but those runners won't be the vast majority of us, like maybe 5–10% of people will prefer the Magic Speed over the Endorphin Speed. But yeah, I mean, you know, this is such a popular shoe, and it's not just for no reason. There's a reason behind it, and the ride is so accommodating, so gentle. It preserves the legs quite well, and it's not doing magic, and I'm coming back to this, sorry, it's not pun intended, but it's not doing any magic at all. It's not like a mind-blowing shoe, but it's doing everything so well and so consistently and so gently that it's a winner. It's a winner without being anything mind-blowing, if it makes sense, at least for me. But we're not reviewing this shoe, so I will stop now. Simply in the battle, there's no much doubt that the Endorphin Speed wins it, hands down. Chapeau Saucony, so good job Saucony for this. Yeah, that's it. Question of the day for you. Do you have a Saucony Endorphin Speed? I know many of you do, because I read all the comments that you put in the video, in the you know, the shoe rotations video. Now, question of the day for you: are you going to pick another V1 if discounted, or are you going to go with V2 based on the assumption that they're very similar, right? Have you seen some leaked pictures, all those checkered types of uppers? Do you like them or not? I'm very curious to hear from you. I think if discounted, and if heavily discounted, I may go for another V1, although I have some mileage left on this shoe. But that's my quick answer for this question. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was useful for you guys. Enjoy your run today, your rides, go above your limits, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you very much for tuning in. It's you know, big pleasure for me. Thank you, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.